What the fuck is going on with FTX? What just happened? How is it possible that the third biggest exchange goes down overnight? How severe are my personal losses? All this and more in today's video. We will discuss the Lehman Brothers moment of crypto and also address the Bernie Madoff of crypto. This asshole has done an excellent job of hiding his true character. In the end, all the image campaigns and political lobbying paid off for Sam Bankman-Fried. Nobody expected what was unraveling recently. He very credibly presented himself as an altruist, a great donor to charity and a philanthropist who does everything for his customers. While in reality, he was doing the exact opposite. Customer funds were embezzled. He was making huge leveraged bets with customer funds which were supposed to be secured and safe. We are talking about fraud on a huge scale. Even Charles Ponzi, the father of the Ponzi scheme, couldn't have pulled it off any better. I am someone who is very paranoid and often recognizes bullshit. I too have fallen for SBF, which is short for Sam Bankman-Fried. I thought Binance and FTX were the gold standard of CeFi exchanges. Boy, was I wrong. Let's start with a short recap. About 1 week ago, FTX reportedly had a so-called liquidity crunch. To my understanding, this means that they got the funds, but they are not liquid yet, and customers have to wait a bit until they get the money, but they should be fine. As it turned out, this was a bold and blatant lie. FTX no longer has the funds. Most or all of the customer deposits have been lost. The whole thing happened like this. Bankman-Fried's hedge fund, Alameda Research, borrowed funds from FTX. These coins were the customer's money. In some cases, at least collateral was deposited. Although even this process was highly questionable, and I would even call it criminal. The collateral was largely provided by FTX's own coin FTT, which had previously been created virtually out of thin air, without any costs. The problems began when FTX's biggest competitor, Binance, announced to sell its immense FTT reserves, which caused the coin to lose massive value and the collateral too. This led to the insufficient collateral to cover the lent funds.
No, how is this not a pyramid scheme?
All right, let me explain again. Phil has recruited me and another guy. Now we are getting 3 people each. The more people that get involved, the more people who are investing, the more money we're all gonna make. It's not a pyramid scheme. It's not even a scheme per se. It's
the role of CZ Changpeng Zhao, the founder and CEO of Binance, should also be examined more closely too. It is conceivable that CZ has understood the situation of FTX very well, and he might have announced the FTT sale to give the stumbling over-leveraged competitor the death blow. This scenario becomes even more likely considering that FTX has allegedly doing massive lobbying against its competitors behind their backs with enormous donations to political parties that have allegedly been made to influence the regulators in its own interest and against the competition. If CZ had realized that Alameda Research was over-leveraged, he may have used this to his own advantage. Through the massive FTT sell-off, he was able to push the price down and put the competitor in massive trouble. maybe even with the option to take it over. This was also originally in the room, but was then rejected by Binance. Then the enormous extent of the fraud and the extent of missing funds became known. After looking into FTX books, Binance declined the deal. The situation was further complicated by the fact that the SEC launched an investigation which would have made a takeover even more challenging. After failing to raise fresh capital to plug the holes, FTX and dozens of related companies were forced to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Unfortunately, this is not the end of the story, but everything only became worse. Largely shortly after the bankruptcy, there was also a hack in which several additional hundreds of millions of customer assets were lost. This obviously is a very strange coincidence and screams insider job. On top of that, it looks like Sam Bankman-Fried had a backdoor on FTX, allowing him to move funds, for example, to Alameda Research, bypassing all security checks that should have been in place. Strangely enough, payouts have been stopped for all except Bahamian customers, which is the headquarter of FTX. Presumably, they wanted to give employees, friends, and family the chance to leave the sinking ship. Obviously, this is done at the expense of other customers, because the pie to be distributed becomes smaller and smaller with more cash outflows.
That man ate all our shrimp and 2 plastic lobsters.
"'Tis no man, 'tis a remorseless eating machine. Arr.
Cash outs were probably also facilitated by non-Bahamian residents, by illegally KYCing them either through bribery to FTX staff or by submitting counterfeit utility bills. There were also various other loopholes for people outside the Bahamas to transfer their funds to FTX users with a residency in the Bahamas, so that they can withdraw their money. In the beginning, this was possible by internal transfers. Later, FTX Pay was used. NFTs were another loophole, which were bought at moon prices to move the money to the Bahamas account. FTX claimed that the withdrawal clearance for Bahama accounts was a request from the regulators. This has turned out to be another bold, outright lie, as the regulators have since clarified that there was never such a request. After the hack and further money outflows, it now looks as if a maximum of 10% of the money owed is still available. The bankruptcy might even result in a total loss for the investors. At first, SBF claimed that FTX US is completely fine since FTX International is a separate, ring-fenced entity. In the end, this also turned out to be a lie, and both filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. In addition, it came to light that Alameda Research has made billions in trading losses despite using insider knowledge to make profits, which is highly illegal. The knowledge about future token listings on FTX, for example, was exploited to make profits. Ultimately, after making the profits in the bull market, where virtually everyone was winning, they became too cocky and incurred devastating losses in the bear market. In addition to that, Sam received a $1 billion personal loan from one of the 4 companies deeply involved in the collapse of the FTX exchange, a formal declaration in ongoing Chapter 11 bankruptcy filings from FTX new CEO John Ray revealed further misappropriation of funds. According to the filing, Alameda Research loaned $1 billion to Sam Bankman-Fried, while FTX Director of Engineering Nisab Sikh also received a $543 million loan from the company. Ray, remember the new CEO, who was responsible for picking up the pieces after the infamous collapse of Enron, went as far as describing the situation as the worst he's seen in his corporate career, highlighting the complete failure of corporate controls and an absence of trustworthy financial information. This is a quote of his.
From compromised systems integrity and faulty regulatory oversight abroad, to the concentration of control in the hands of a very small group of inexperienced, unsophisticated and potentially compromised individuals, this situation is unprecedented.
The bankruptcy filing contains other damning indictments on the inner workings of Sam's empire. The wider FTX group did not maintain centralized control of its cash, failed to keep accurate bank account lists, and paid insufficient attention to the creditworthiness of banking partners. Basically, no reliable audits were made for the companies involved. The disbursement of funds was also highly dysfunctional, according to the filing. Quote,
employees of the FTX group submitted payment requests through an online chat platform where a disparate group of supervisors approved disbursements by responding with personalized emojis.
Ray also notes that corporate funds were used to purchase homes and personal items for employees and advisors, with a lack of documentation for transactions including loans. The custody of cryptocurrency assets was also in disarray. Ray outlines unacceptable practices that included using unsecured group email accounts to access confidential private keys and critically sensitive data for the global network of companies. The group also failed to carry out daily reconciliation of cryptocurrency holdings and used software to conceal the misuse of customer funds. This also allowed the secret exemption of Alameda from certain aspects of FTX.com's auto liquidation protocol. Most telling is the fact that debtors carrying out bankruptcy proceedings have only secured a fraction of the digital assets they hoped to recover. Cold wallets containing way less cryptocurrency than owed, and it's not clear which of the bankrupt companies the funds belong to. Moving on to my exposure to FTX. Unfortunately, I got way more funds on there and my exposure is very high. I trusted in the legitimacy and trustworthiness of FTX. Unfortunately for me, I have not done what I always preach. Not your keys, not your crypto. Always put your crypto in self-custody and don't trust any centralized player, as they are prone to hacks and as we saw, fraud as well. Unfortunately, I did not follow my own credo and had a lot of funds on FTX. On the one hand, to buy possible dips. On the other hand, also to do lending on FTX to generate a little yield. I got a mid to high six-figure amount in the dumpster fire. What makes matters even more annoying is that I had applied for a large fiat payout before the crash. It was also executed. Unfortunately, my bank then refused the money because it came from crypto and sent it back to FTX. This was done even though I immediately told the bank that this should not be done under any circumstances and that they are more than welcome to close my account as long as I am allowed to give payment instructions for the money. Unfortunately, my bank was not reasonable and sent the mid-six-figure amount back to the sender. This happened even though I had already threatened to make them liable for any losses that might occur. It looks like I will now have to sue my bank as well. Let me know what your experiences are with FTX. Do you lost money as well, or were you smarter than me holding your crypto in self-custody? Let's move on to what I have learned from the crisis. I was again reminded that crypto is full of scams. This one was particularly insidious because, unlike Terra Luna, for example, it was much harder to see that you were cheated. I have learned again to invest only what I can afford to lose. I also realized that it is best not to take any risks for a few measly percentages, especially in crypto.
Simple rule. If you control the keys, it's your Bitcoin. If you don't control the keys, it's not your Bitcoin. Your keys, your Bitcoin. Not your keys, not your Bitcoin. Your keys, your Bitcoin. Not your keys, not your Bitcoin.
Lending on FTX was just not profitable enough to justify the risk of having money on there. Although at the time it was an exchange with very good reputation. Crypto is still the Wild West and investing there is many times riskier than traditional investments. Even if you had no exposure to FTX, you will be heavily affected anyways by this, as prices are in free fall and the contagion might spread. Nowadays, everything is intertwined and heavily connected. If one falls, many others might follow. Many other firms and crypto projects already announced that they are also affected from the FTX fallout. That's why you should always protect yourself and be your own bank. Just one more thing to say.
He got caught. We caught him cold. We have him cold. Now let's see what happens.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with someone who might also benefit from this content. Watch this video next to learn more about the risks of investing in Bitcoin and crypto.